Okay, you're here 13? Oh,
He was? Oh, I
he
think
is now a speaker. He is now a speaker.
he's doubly the speaker, I guess.
That was weird, but yeah, here I am.
Oh, happy Easter, everyone.
Yep, happy Easter.
Okay, so we'll get started. Specifically, this is not about just your individual defense keep. This is about a team defense approach to battlefields that, like your team's struggling with, whether it's a battlefield where you go in and there's some huge wow that's, has 4.5k buffs and what to do about it. Or just other of the 95 percenters in the game that are just trying to figure out how to get better as a team in battlefields. And so 13 and HID will talk about like more of like the mechanics, but we're going to break it up into two sections. One section is what to do when you're actually in battlefield, and then like how NEF as a team does it when we're outside of battlefield, and how we prepare our team to basically build together as a team, right? Specifically focusing on defense for this class. And if you don't know who NEF is a great alliance and has been around since the dawn of time, and it has been
old people.
has been a very successful alliance. Was a top alliance through the K35 days, the K40 days, and we're still hanging in there in the K45 days. And particularly right now, what we're seeing is a lot of our opponents have really rushed their buffs, and we're continually outbuffed in most battlefields, but we're still hanging in there and winning a lot. And so we want to talk about how you can do that and how you can do that without, like I say, it's 95% of the whole game doesn't have 4K buffs, maybe even a little bit higher than that. I don't know. I'm not certain. So like you can still absolutely compete as a team and you can still win a lot of battlefields. And there's a lot of things you can do to outsmart, outskill, and outplay when you're outbuffed. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And 13 has been running NEF with me since its origin, 4 years ago. Well, it's probably about 4.5 years ago now.
Yeah, I think we're nearing 5.
5 is in November, and we were Continent 2, got merged really young into C1, into a pretty big server, and kind of had to battle it out there. We were the first ever challenge that happened. We somehow made it miraculously, even though we were like a teeny tiny team, and again, like really outskilled a lot of our opponents that thought like since we were like a fourth of everyone's size, they were just going to kind of steamroll us. And then HID joined us. I mean, he was here. I think it's been like 3 years. HID, would you say 3 years?
Maybe closer to 2.
Okay,
Maybe 3, 2 or 3. Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, that's 13 in HID, and I'm Huntress, and I'm the R5 of NEF. I think Dark in comments might be trying to mute themselves. We can't hear you, Dark, if you're worried about.
Yeah, everyone else should be good except for us 3 right now.
Yeah. Happy Easter, baby bear. Okay, 13, do you want to jump into a little bit about kind of like our current battlefields and what we're doing to defend as a team and some stuff we're working on?
Yeah, sure. So basically, how we work is we know that right now, since how Hunt said, a lot of teams and keeps have been rushing buffs. I mean, we are still keeping up, but like it's gotten to a point where like there's a lot of keeps out there that have gotten a little bit absurd. So we need to approach it in a different way where we know what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are. So we are acting more as a unit and acting more as a very selective hits we are not just going in and be like we're gonna have fun. We're just gonna like zero everyone. We're even if it costs us points and we go negative, that's not the approach we're taking. We are taking a more approach into like, okay, we need to like defend since it's like 2 or 3 keeps that are like literally out buffing us, and it's like 15 of us. We can surely play it smart enough in order to make them struggle, because like let it be known that like we are a 700 bill alliance, and lately we are getting paired up with alliances from C5 and I think it's C5 mostly that have this huge keep, K45, all T16s, 4500 buffs. And the only way we're going to be able to play against him is if we play defense, we watch out for what he's doing, and we just don't simply splat onto him because, like, let's be real, if he's that solid, we're going to have to do a lot of rallies, a lot of negative points in order to start going positive. And most of them will just heal in between. So it's just going to be impossible to actually go positive and win the game. So that's just an example. So what we're doing is we are really focusing on reactive reinforcing and like how to like counter the marches. So basically, against players like that, we are just if it's soloing, we are just focusing the pre-reigning method. It's the only way. With some pre-reigns, basically, if a person is soloing, there's a very high chance they're just going to go negative. So if you're facing that kind of player where he's just soloing his ass off, just make sure that whoever's getting targeted speaks up. What are you getting hit with? And we'll just send, according pre-reigns in order to stop him from chunking you out. Now in it is rallies, we are not pre-reigning because if the team is smart, they're just gonna like check what the pre-reigns are, and they're just gonna try to set a rallies in order to counter the pre-reigns. Not many teams do that, but like we're always, like trying to stay on top of that just to not give out points with pre-reigns that just doesn't make sense. Okay, let me just put a real quick pause here.
Yeah, and so with that reactive reigning,
Mhm.
it's a really hard skill to master. You can a great place to practice is All Stars, and then teach your team. That's what we did years ago. So basically, like for reactive reigning, the secret is the war tab. You cannot be hanging out in your AC or on the map. If you are being rallied by a 4.5k buffed keep, and then like some secondary keeps or multiple, we won't name names, but you have to be on it with reactive reigning, especially if they're going to set fakes too. And so we're all in the war tab. And when you're in the war tab, it's bouncy as hell in there. But I promise, if you continue to use the war tab, that bounce, you won't even see it anymore. Your eyes will know where to look, and you'll hit the right chords, and it'll take you to your teammate. And your brain will also be able to process like fast enough what they need. But it can be helpful too to say like, hey, arch on hid, send ground to hid, ground to hid. Like you can have someone calling that out too for the team. And so you have basically most rallies, I would say, it depends on the team. There's some really fast rallying teams, but 8 to 15 seconds you have to reign your teammate. And I don't know what it is about these these kind of big buffed keeps, but they tend to have a little bit of a slower rally, so you have even more time to reign these keeps. So have your team start hanging out in the war tab as much as possible, even though it's like uncomfortable and a little bit foreign. It's a great place to learn how to reactive reign. 13, I cut you off. Were you going to show us something? Or?
I was just gonna pause because I was reading Jake's question. So basically, just to like approach that, he's asking like if we're using the same marches we use in rallies, or like if we have like a specific march like the ones we use for throne. So basically, yeah, we use throne marches to reinforce. So the reason behind it is like because I'll be completely honest, we're pretty fast when it comes to reactive range. Like you'll see 7, 8 of us just join in the reinforcing before the rally even hits. So like that's one of our biggest strengths. So like if we have 8 marches that are reinforcing, like with heavy T14, T15s, like having those marches reinforce is lethal in terms of defending, because like you're having those higher buffs for those higher tier troops, and because one, like, when you're reinforcing and defending, one march hits, then the other march hits, so it's just damage over damage. So if they're all like higher tiers, that just means the damage output is just ridiculous. So definitely helps defend more. So yeah, we do have specific presets for reinforcing and specific presets for rallying.
So just real quick to clarify for the reigning, somebody asked.
Mhm.
Typically, just the rain preset is going to be more high tiers than what you would typically send in your rallies. Where for the rallies, you're trying to go as positive as possible. When you're defending against rallies, of course, you want to go positive, but more importantly, you want to keep your player alive.
Yep.
So if you can tank more for them, that's going to turn out better for you all than it would if your March lives, but they don't live, for example.
Yeah. So I do see this a lot with teams. And this is where you really want to start thinking like a team. Because if I send my high tier siege rain to Hid, I don't get a lot of points from that, to be honest, right? So, but that's okay because I'm saving Hid and he can continue playing offensively the rest of the match, which is important.
And
so
trust us, he needs it.
Yeah, so some teams are like, well, they think too individually. They're like, well, I want my name to be on the top of the scoreboard, so I'm going to send a bunch of T12s and 13s and just soak in all the points while my teammates' troops die. But like, you got to shift that mentality as a team, right? So start thinking like a team, and that applies to like everything we do. Like, what troop are we opening next? Well, what does the team need? What do the rallies need? Like, that's how we're always thinking. Like right now, like something I think NEF is really going to start focusing on is improving, updating embassies so we can fill more reigns, right? So things like that, like, no, bro, why are you doing a rally spot? You're doing embassy this month. Like, that's how we think and play. And it's like really shows up on the battlefield well for us.
Yeah, and I think it is tough for especially beginning alliances or just alliances who haven't focused on it in general to get more of that defensive mindset, because this game is typically built off of the hey, rally as fast as I can, kill their troops before they kill our troops, where sometimes it's you need to play that defensive, like Hunt mentioned, against those bigger players who just way out buff you.
Yeah, I think this meta that we're seeing, defense is like extremely important right now in the game. And I mean, if you can see, even some of the generals they've come out with are like, people are like, this is such a trash arch gen. And you're like, no, it's actually like a beautiful gen for reigning if you really look at it, all its stats. And so defense is going to be huge in this game. And back in K35 days, and on our YouTube, I'm going to start showing some like really old footage. It was really slow paced. People didn't sling rallies because you have to really analyze what's in people's keeps. And I think we're headed towards that for sure. So this is all the more important to just like get your team on the same page with defense.
Unless you're Viper.
Unless you're Viper, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to look for something here real quick that I wanted to.
A report?
Yeah, because like it's when we're talking about the whole thing where like, you're reinforcing with higher tiers, but like sometimes you feel like, wow, like I just reinforced with higher tiers and all I did was die. Like I'll be honest, it's a shitty feeling, but at the same time, you have no idea the difference the difference you're making, right? So I just wanted to like let me see if I can Hid, you can keep them entertained
Yep.
while I just do
So-
Well, Hid, something we can also touch base on is buildings. And like yesterday, we didn't have ground in a building, and that fucked us. So something we're really working on too is like we're playing buildings a lot more in Battlefield, especially when you don't want to be port locked, especially against a huge player. So sending things as a team to buildings to hold a building and calling out what you're sending. So you have not too much cav, enough ground, enough arch. So we've been saying like, okay, post this portal, I'm sending arch. And then everyone else says what they're sending. And then when you say it out loud, you know, like, okay, we don't have enough ground in there. And like yesterday, that didn't happen. And we got fucking wrecked in a mine and lost the team heal that we needed to take down Seabone. If you don't know who Seabone is, he's a C1 player, an amazing player, and his keep is absolutely disgusting, filthy. And to really zero him, we need all the troops we can get. So we needed that team heal, but we didn't call out what we were sending to that mine, and that was bad communication on our part. But it's also like we reflect on that battlefield and say like, okay, now we really need to focus on this because we kind of dropped the ball with that.
Yep. So to answer some of the questions that were sent in the chat, so when you're reigning, you're always going to want to send layers as well. So whatever size layers you use, you're going to want to send those as well. But if, let's say you have a siege march that you send heavy T11 or whatever, you're going to want to send higher tiers instead of those to reinforce, just so hopefully the reigns are more tanking than the keep that they will, so they can survive, sort of thing. But yeah, definitely always send layers no matter what. Whatever you're doing, send layers.
Yeah, and you're spreading out like a few, I mean, just like with a rally, like if you all lose a little, isn't that better than one person losing it all? Yeah, we're all losing a little bit of high tier troops by raiding this person, but that's fine because we can keep rallying with that. But if we're like losing this player and then this player gets on fire and this player, like we're fucked. So that's our mentality, is we'll all lose a little so we can continue playing the entire 2 hours and hopefully win.
Yep. And then we also have a question about defense keep general wise for a free to play player. He says he has a William Marshall right now that's 1 star, and would it be better to go for a tavern gen? Personally, I think especially if you're going for what I know a lot of free to play players do, the T1 trap, I think you can't really go wrong. There are some pretty good wall gens in the tavern, like Boudica, for example. I think she's gonna outclass your 1 star William Marshall pretty well. So I would definitely say that's not a bad way to go. And you can get her fully ascended over time, and then you can use that towards your victory column, for example, as well.
Yep.
I think, just to reiterate one of the things that Hunt said, is all of defense really starts at communicating with your team. Because unfortunately, if you all aren't on the same page and there's some people who don't know what's going on, people are taking rallies when you're expecting them to port out of rallies, stuff like that. All of that's going to hurt the overall team dynamic of the defense more than we would like to admit. Which unfortunately happens to everybody at some points. 13, did you end up finding that report?
Yeah, I just want to I'm just gonna share my screen just to show this is what I'm basically gonna show is when suddenly one of your teams, he's getting constantly set on and you're reactive reinforcing, and he's to a point where he's vulnerable and that he really depends on his team. So this is what happens. I'm just gonna share my game real quick here. Let me know if you guys can see it. I'm hoping you guys can.
Yep, we're good.
Yep. All right. So this was I think it was last week against WDF. Pretty solid team. Props to them. They played really well.
Oh, they're an amazing team. Amazing team,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So they were targeting Toy. As you can see, all these defense reports right here, they're on Toy. And we were reactive reinforcing. As you can see here, they set this siege rally on Toy. And as you can see, he only loses 9 million troops, but we get chunked pretty hard. So what we did here basically is he was down, basically. This is pretty much meaningless. See, he was down to T12 siege. So if this had landed with none of us here, he would have gotten chunked out to the very like every siege would have died. Archers would have started getting blasted. And yeah, so reinforcing him was really key here, not making sure that he wasn't gonna like get destroyed. And as you can see here, like everybody sent like pretty much correct reinforcements. Loki, Hunt, Garfell, like we're all tanking. You can see like the T15 siege, T14s, they're just tanking. I mean, they're dealing damage, but they're mostly just tanking to make sure that toy doesn't die out, you know. So that's basically it. This is just basically an example of like, look at that, like that hurts to see, you know, like losing 3 million high tier siege, but like, and that's the thing, like you need to understand, like, sure, this hurts, like, you know, JT, this was Whistling Bells, suffered, right? But that was part of that 1.7 billion drop off. And when you think about the points here, you might say like, oh, power wise it was pretty even, but points wise, like we won this by quite a lot. So, and we also kept Toy in the games.
Yeah,
like,
and that's the key.
have,
that's the key with that battlefield, is that they kind of it's somewhat of a splat on Toy, right? We kept him alive, and then eventually they weakened out, and then we started rallying heavily at the end, and then kind of blowing them all out. So it was a really beautiful strategy to, and WDF like outbuffs us quite a bit, but we outsized them. I mean, we have to say that we're pretty fucking huge compared to them. So they're like trying to get through all these troops, and they played it really, really well too. But it was an amazing match. And if we didn't rain Toy, it's just one less person in those rallies at the end to really get us that win.
Yeah, exactly. Because if that rally would have landed with none of us there, then it cuts his ability to, you know, like send T11 siege rallies, you know, join with T11s. His archers were going to get hit as well at that point. Like the siege was just going to eat through like probably his T15 archers, some of his T14. So like, yeah, reinforcing him just kept him in there. And then they just thought they could just keep trying to set fakes on us to try to get him because he was the most vulnerable at the time. And like just having your team on top of like, you know, who's the most vulnerable, who's more likely to get hit, that makes the difference. And like we were just totally outplaying that part of the game, like just knowing what their next move was going to be.
That's important. That's a really good point too, is no, like there's patterning, and when you have like one setter, I mean, I know it depends on like where you're at with your team, because you don't want to like have like 7 setters and everyone building that way. But like WDF was doing 2 fakes, 1 real, and we caught on real quick that was their pattern. And with NEF, we have 4 setters. I don't even know what 13's gonna set sometimes, right? Like, I mean, we're kind of reading each other's minds at this point, and that's why 4 setters can set well on our team. But like, he might do a fake out that I don't know he's doing. Like, sometimes I'll be like, fake siege going up, set the reel on this, and I'll post the chords. And so there's no way the enemy can even know what we're going to do, because we don't even know what we're going to do. So really trying not to like fall into those same patterns. And I'm sure the next time we play WDF, it's going to be a lot harder too, because they're just like, they're facing like all these like hardcore, like GOT. I think they
played RSP a few weeks ago.
They face out. So like they're like in the learning phase of like, holy shit, these teams have been like playing together for years, and so every time we play them, it's going to get harder and harder, which is like really exciting. So
yeah,
I'm just reading stuff.
Yep, all good. I think that's also another one of the big things about defense and just in general, is you're always going to want to learn your player or your enemy, or in some cases, you know, even the friend that you're playing, for example. Like back in the day when we used to play RSP all of the time, back when Sing was around, it was every time we played them, each side would mention to the other one like, hey, we learned something, next time we're going to do this better, or we're going to do something else different better. And so I think it's easy to say like, hey, just we have this plan, this is what we're going to do, this is going to work every time. But for the most part, that's not. And so I think that comes back to the communication with your team about being able to be on your feet about like, hey, should we be taking rallies right now? Is that going to be more beneficial than if we just have everybody poured out, try to catch them slowly, or do we want to just rally them over and over again? Because if they're zeroed, then they can't rally us back, sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of that back and forth of what do you need to do at any given moment and thinking on your feet, for example.
I'm just reading through the comments here.
Yep, I think the biggest part is dictating the rhythm of the battlefield. Because if you're on top of it and they don't know what's going on, it's going to be a lot harder for them to react to whatever you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Luna. I'm like thinking about that now. You can kind of lead your opponent like where you want to go.
Yep. And that's another thing, like really quick here, like this is something that a lot of teams like I think like I don't know if it is an ego thing or like, you know, like whatever it is, it's really weird to me. But like for example, like if you're playing a team that has like, you know, it's an even playing field and you know that both teams can like really hurt each other. And right now you have a
what? Oh no. You're going robot again.
Oh, he's been fine for me.
Okay, continue, sorry.
Like
sorry, Discord is sorry, real quick. Discord has been having this weird client side issue, it seems, recently, where some people will hear somebody really robot-y, but other people won't.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I don't know how to fix it, but
okay. Good sidebar. All right.
Sorry, yeah, carry on.
So yeah, it's basically like when it comes to like, let's say it's happened to us quite a few times where like the battlefield suddenly takes like a quick pause where you see like both teams are in a stare down. But like let's say we at this moment, and it's happened lately in all our battlefields, we have the upper hand, like we're winning, right? So like as Luna said, like we have the ability right now to dictate the whole battlefield. Right now we are in the position that they have to make their first, they need to make a move. They're the ones desperate for the win. Like we can basically respond to them. And that's key, like knowing where you stand in the battlefield, like knowing that, okay, well, it's time for us to react, let them do their move. And in this game, I'll be honest, like the ones that are countering have the advantage. I've seen it time and time. The people that the team that is doing the counters and the team that is just waiting for them to make the move, they have the upper hand. So like always just, you know, like just stay on top of like the scores, how it's looking, because like if you have the upper hand, the game, don't keep playing it as if like, oh yeah, we need to hit this, we need to hit that, we need to like, this guy needs to be zero. Like no, like change that mentality. Like if you want to have fun and just zero keeps, then that's on you. And if your team is fine with that, then by all means just do that. But if you want to win and if you want to just, you know, compete, and even though it might be a little bit boring, but like I'm sure everyone here prefers winning over losing. Like that's a fact. But yeah, just basically just saying that out loud, because like I think that's something that a lot of teams struggle with. Like this game is not meant to just be blindly slinging rallies when it's like an even playing field. Like if it is an even playing field, there's a lot more strategy built into it than just slinging rallies.
Yeah, and then just to get down to like some real hard examples, not hard, but specific, explicit examples. When K45 dropped, you know, a lot of people rushed to, not a lot, but that 5% rushed to get K45. And so, for example, like NFG is a great opponent that we face and has always been a great opponent for years. So BK had a K45. I think he was one of the first, maybe him and Neo. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think BK was.
It was like within hours of each other. Yeah. I'm not kidding. BK entered. Well, I think it was Fox, or Sing on BK, but this was a team we were kind of like in a place with where we were like winning a lot. He came into the battlefield and soloed every single NEF player except the big four. Every single NEF player got soloed by BK.
I think I died from 17 bill in 6 hits.
We were like, holy fuck. So
What happened?
we didn't freak out, and then like we always know it looks like NEF is sort of falling off as soon as the keep update happens because we don't coin out the ass. But so what we did was we're like, okay, so these big four can't be soloed by BK. Now let's get the fifth in there. Who's our fifth? Pig? Okay, Pig, work on this for your defense. Okay, now Pig can't be soloed. And we started crossing people over that like non-soloable line. Until well, we're still working on it. We have a lot left that can still be soloed. But like that's how we're working as a team. Like and how to like 13, I don't know if you want to explain like how to actually do that. Like what do people need to do to be like non-soloable? And then as a band-aid in Battlefield, we did send like pre-rains to all the people that could be soloed. And with like a beefy siege. And that helped a lot because something that really deters solos is when, you know, these guys hit you and you have a rain in you and they go even or negative, they'll back away. They don't like those reports. They won't like, there's not a lot of players that will like keep doing it over and over and over again. So that was our strategy for that until we kind of crossed more and more people over to not being able to be soloable. But I don't know, 13, do you want to talk a little bit about the exact mechanics behind like, okay, you're good now?
Yeah, basically at that time, like we saw that just like the people that were getting just completely shunked out were the people that just like had a lack of siege buffs and a lack of siege, troop count. So basically we just had everyone just work on that as much as they could. And there's a point where you're like when you have like let's say at our we're a totally different league from a lot of other teams, but like we're one of the biggest. So like in our bracket, we were telling people that okay, you need to at least have 10 million T15 siege in order to at least tank something. And obviously, once you're getting chunked, ask for pre-rains because they're just gonna keep going at it until they just completely blast through it. But at least that gives them a little bit of a breathing time where like, yeah, like now at least I can survive a solo. I can have the backup from my team, and that's exactly what was happening. Then after that horrible experience with the soloing from BK, um, where we just adapted to it. We had keeps, with more siege count. We sent some pre-rains out in order to help them defend against the solos, and then we just did our thing where we just, like said efficient rallies, and it was really fun, and we actually, got the win that time. And it's been a while since we've faced again, but yeah, like that's how we go. We just adapt to whatever's going on, and
It's constant
yeah.
adaptation. Like it is like, okay, this is working for us. Okay, this doesn't work anymore. Like there was a while we were doing like a split up hive where the smaller keeps would like hide. And then there's a point where we're like, no, we all need to hive together. Like it's just constantly changing. And you have to like kind of go through some losses to figure out like where you need. I think that's like the easiest way to adapt is really learn from your losses and being able to like kind of call each other out on stuff too. And like something like another thing with defense that I'm noticing is, and I don't know if you guys notice, is people, you need to make sure your players know their own keep. And like this guy might be able to sit for a rally with 2 reigns and be cool, and this guy might not be able to. And they need to know that. Like they need to really know like where their keep is and go into a battlefield and think for themselves too and say like, okay, like we're facing Frank a lot. His buffs are disgusting. So I'm not gonna sit for a rally because I know that he's gonna like chunk me out even with reigns. So like having your team like also think for themselves too, because it's really hard to manage a whole battlefield and be like, okay, you poured out, no, you stay. How many reigns do you have? 4. Okay, you can stay. Like that's really hard to do. So having your team like always know where they're at and what they're building towards too is really important.
Yep. I'm seeing here a question from Luna. So what you're talking about is K40 plus. Are we going to talk about the lower leagues as well, where people are learning to dictate the rhythm, where it's more T1 trap and less siege? Um, oh, I think we also missed one at the top. But I guess it all depends. Like I would just have to see the trip composition on that because like a lot of T1 traps, like depending on what they have, like if you have like a pretty decent amount of siege and like bad amount of siege and archers, like someone with like, it also depends against who you're facing, because if someone like, you know, let's say like someone like Frank sends a big siege solo at you, he's probably just gonna chunk the living shit out of like that keep. So um I would need to like see like troop composition on here, because like a lot of T1 traps at this point are like extremely vulnerable to siege. That's been like the biggest thing. All the like, you know, like the elites have just like exploited that, so they're just like literally just chunking them. And
You know what's
yeah,
great as a
all the
team as team defense for that is port swaps.
mhm.
Because like, I mean, we can talk about T1 traps and how to make like the most lethal ones, but there's just people you're going to face that T1 trap isn't going to hold out against someone with 4K buffs. Unless like, I mean, there's some T1 traps that are like super high VIP level and are pretty gross, but that's more rare. So that's when like you need to think as a team, like port swap it. They're not going to keep going after you if like they know a port swap might be coming. It's hard to port swap solos, but it is, you got to practice and you can do it. Um, so that might be like just like a team based defense against that. But if you want to talk about the nitty gritty of like T1 traps, we can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, at that point it's just basically have basically if you're gonna be a T1 trap, you need to be like extremely small, you know, like that 2 bill, 3 bill range. Um and I think basically having those layers for siege and archers, uh archers a little bit more heavy. Siege is just basically just having that amount of layers in order to at least, you know, create those rounds against the big siege solo. And then, you know, usually the T1 traps are basically all calf flats, literally even for attack, which is like heavily overpowered at some points. And you should define if you can share like a report that would also help like just dissect like what needs to be changed, if there is any. Because like I'll be honest, the thing about NEF is that since we're so like we're pretty much big and like our defenses are all cap siege like buffs. Like we have a couple that run flats, but like they're just like, you know, our portal holders. They're basically just like trying to bait lines and stuff. Like our heavy core is basically all like percentages on walls, and that's like why you see some heavy droppage in power. But like in all, like when we're like tanking, we're basically just winning the points exchanges, because like sure, like I lost 7 mil, 8 mil T15 Cas, but they sent a full 50, 60 mil arch rally, you know.
Do
So
you,
like
I wonder if it would be helpful for you guys, and you can comment if like when to know, because we had a lot of T1 traps and then we started slowly transitioning to back to percents. And I say back because we've been back and forth between percents and flats, back to percents. But um like I don't know if it'd be helpful to know when like those signs are where it's time to start shifting to percents for your team, or if Luna, you want to talk more about like just a team kind of full of like maybe there's like 1 or 2 K40s and everyone else is still like growing.
Yeah, I sent her an invite to speak.
Hiya.
oh
Hey,
my god,
Hey.
oh sorry.
Sorry for my voice. I am extremely ill, but it's much easier to explain
Oh,
it all in one
yeah.
go. Obviously, I'm coming from C6. We are in really low level league, but obviously with the diversity of the group that raising questions here, not everyone is being extremely at high level or being a really heavy coiner.
Mm.
My team is having one K39 and everyone else is between K33 and K38.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the things that after listening some of the calls that's happening here on Discord, most of the things that you guys mention are for way above K40 and going really high buffs and sometimes really heavy coining. But obviously it had to be built up and our team is on the build up. As I mentioned before, it took a bit of time to recognize that we have to be the better team playing, the bigger dog regarding being a team player to dictate the rhythm on battlefield. Doesn't matter if they have higher buffs or stronger capes until we can dictate the rhythm on battlefield. Currently, most of my players are amazing to be little traps, which means that they can ghost, they can go zero, but because they are always going back to buildings to take on battlefield, they can be reinforced, which again goes back to one of the points that one of you guys mentioned, that reinforcing is important, which one of my questions is, how is reinforcing built up is different from attacking and rallying PvP marches? Because I try to give the team an example with percentages instead of actual numbers, because obviously everyone's buffs and rally capacity or march capacity is different.
And you probably don't have as many presets as, like a VIP. I don't even know when it changes. I don't mean to be out of touch. I've been playing too long. VIP 11 is when you get 3, right? So I don't even know how many presets you guys have, so you probably won't be able to have a raid march and a rally march, right? So you want like an in between, and then like a percent of like what percent of
T11? Sorry, it's between VIP 11 and VIP 15. VIP 15 gives you 6 presets.
Okay.
Okay, so that's still a decent amount of presets.
And those are good VIPs for C6 as well. Just a VIP 15 and C6 is like pretty good. So I think they would have to have like a mix then, since they can't have multiple. Yeah.
So we obviously, in C6, we use a lot of ground. In another conversation, it was mentioned that it's mainly archers and mounted troops that other continents are using. However, on C6, grounds are absolutely flying and sieges are just starting to come up. So obviously we have cavalry, archers, ground, and mainly small siege. But the main focus on attacking on C6 are really on archers and ground, especially in lower leagues in battlefield. Siege is rare, especially big siege is really rare. And sometimes I feel like these kind of conversations are missing, or these points are missing from these calls to have comparison, where different continents have different experiences on battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we started out. When NEF started out, it was very similar. Like, we were just mostly slinging arch rallies. Well, when we started out, people weren't even really rallying that much. And then it was ground, and then cav, and siege didn't even exist. So you're doing the same trajectory as us, for sure. I think so. As your team builds, I think I remember when cav rallies, we never focused on our cavs. We were like, don't build cav. You don't want to be a boss account, right? And just rally bosses. So don't work on cav. But 13 was like ahead of the game and was like, I'm working on cav. And then when we just started to see that our cav rallies had a place, that like gave us an edge for sure. And then when we saw siege happening, which siege wasn't happening until I think we were like 18 months in. So it sounds like you're on the right trajectory as far as what to reign with and what to rally with. It's I feel like you're at the place where maybe having a march that has a little bit of both in there, right? So not like just all straight it might be T12s, I guess.
Well, we have a lot of with up to T14s, obviously the max troop type. I urged the team. They were not really happy, but everyone built at least an archer, a mounted, and started to work on their sieges because they started to become handy, but obviously not everyone at that coining level. Because so many of my players, for example, are free-to-play players, and I'm trying to find the balance with something you mentioned a few calls ago regarding mapping out individually to everyone the goals that they need to set. So I'm just bringing my own alliances example because maybe some people have or can relate to it, or they are actually a free-to-play player and can access information from it. But sometimes I find it personally hard how to explain to people that stop training for monster hunting and go for a trap game.
Yeah.
I started to say to people that they cannot come to Battlefield if they are focusing on monster hunting because
Yeah.
they are just becoming a liability.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's right.
um,
We did I forgot we had to join rallies, SVS rallies, you had to have a certain arch attack when we first started building NEF. And so like having like goals like that, and then you kind of weed out who's going to be your PvP players, right? So it sounds like you're on the right track. Do you have like a specific question that maybe like we address, but towards more like later built keeps, aside from the Rain March versus Rally March?
yes, so obviously for reinforcing, you guys mentioned that for reinforcing it should focus more on higher level troops, but is there any percentages how a reinforcing troop march should be built compared to an attacking march that you can use for solo or rallying another player?
Yeah, so for that, like basically that's where the preset count comes in. Because for example, the way we do it, like we have like our range march for rallies, like clearly the low percentage for T15s, then a little bit more on T14s, heavier T13s, and heavier T12s, right? So like, but when we're like sending a range march to reinforce, like the way we're doing it, well, with this been lately, since like for throne defense it also works. We're just doing like a rough example would be like a 40%, 30%, 25, 5. So basically really, really high on the 15s and 14s. Then it drops a little bit on the 13s, and then 12s is just like a really small amount. But basically, this is also really dependent on having more than just one people reinforcing or whatever. Because if you're just reinforcing by yourself, it's not going to be the same impact. The impact comes from having like 5 marches of heavy high tiers reinforcing, because like since one like each one goes after the other, the amount of the damage output those 5 marchers are slinging while reinforcing is just literally like way better than what you're if you would reinforce with like a normal PvP march that you're using for rallies to go points positive and stuff.
So, for example, if it's a ground or an archer reinforcement, would it be like obviously the layers, then about 50% for T14, 30% for T13, and 20% for T12?
Yeah, that would be really good. That is just a start, and then you start seeing how they like behave. You look at reports, and then you can just personalize them, because it also will always adjust to the amount of troops you actually have. So
13. Would you mind sending those numbers in the chat? Somebody asked.
Yeah, I can.
Just so that they have it down in writing. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, another question regarding building. So obviously, in a previous conversation, don't know who missed it, it was explained that the T1 trap should be built as 100% T1, 50% of the T1 should be at T2, 25% for T4 and T3 and no, sorry, T3, T4 and 10% for T5 and 5% for T6, T7 mounted, if I remember correctly. But what about the other layers? What about grounds? What about sieges, archers from T1 to what? T10? What's the percentage for those troops to be part of the defending layers?
So I think the biggest thing there is it's going to depend on what type of T1 trap you want to be. Because, like, for example, we had on our server, it was, I think, a K39 that was used calves for tanking, and then he built up his archers for defending. For, I guess, doing the damage, you could say. And I think it all really depends on how you want to do it. For the siege layers, if you're going to be a T1 trap, you definitely don't want those to be very high, because those are just going to get wiped out almost immediately by a siege solo. And if you have more of those, you could go negative on the siege solo, which defeats the whole purpose of that, a smaller trap of going positive on solos. So you're losing out on that. I think the same can be said for if you have a ton of arch layers, but no siege to back them up, for example. Then an enemy siege attack is going to go immediately into your archers, and it could go poorly. So it's all more of a balancing game, figuring out what you like, and what you enjoy, and sort of what works for you. Because every player who's sending a march at you is going to be different. And so I think saying that there is a one-size-fits-all for all of those other layers doesn't really... I just don't think that personally really works, because it's going to be different, and you're going to have to adapt to what you see.
So basically go out and try out regarding percentages, but try to go for low arch and low siege, middle ground for ground troops, and obviously focus mainly on T1 to T7 ponies.
Yeah, so those low tier calves that you're buffing up majorly are going to help a lot from those. As you go up to like T10, T11, those are going to benefit better from the percents over. So that's why you want all of those low tiers that are going to benefit more so from the flats than they are from the percents.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, no problem. I think we missed some questions in chat.
Yeah, lots of them.
Yep, so we can go ahead and start looking at that. I'll read through Dragonborn's question real quick. Excluding all of the high-end gear, because that's used for primary siege march, what gear combos do you recommend for a siege march, or siege rain march specifically? 13, I think you're probably best to answer this question.
Which question? Sorry, I'm just like trying to was reading.
Civ gear sets for high-end marches, or for rain marches. That's not high-end.
Which question?
You can read in chat. They just tagged all three of us red.
The Dragonborn.
The 1057.
Color blue in chat.
Oh.
While you're thinking about that, BK, I'm actually familiar with your team more than you think. You're from Win. You guys have a good team. So you're talking about when you're rallying, and if someone's port swapping in, you can reset siege behind it and trick them. So when the person swaps in, then we send the siege and they get wrecked. So you could try that. There's a few other strategies that we use. Sometimes if someone's swapping in, we'll pretend to send a solo to like the weak player. That weak player swaps out, and then we're setting a siege behind it, and then the guy swaps in and gets wrecked by siege. There's a lot of different strategies for like a lot of port swapping. Oh, and also Mahor brought up another strategy, which he would rename himself
Swap protect.
Swap protect. So while you're rallying, right, your own teammate swaps in and beats the other guy swapping in, so your rally will land on your own teammate. I'll try to find some footage of a YouTube of that to share it with you.
Yeah.
And port locking. That's a great one too. Okay, sorry, back to the Reds question.
Okay, so this is a really like very situational actual question because it depends a lot and a lot of factors. So I'm gonna bring
So general.
into I'm gonna I can be very general and just say that basically um having the Avast set is basically the best reinforcing march for your secondary, right? Now the thing is, when you think about the Avast set, you're also thinking about like, damn, but like those pieces are actually like really beneficial to have on subs, aren't they? So I mean, yeah, it's totally true. I prefer to have them on subs rather than having them on a secondary siege gen. Um, I think I'll be completely honest, and there's a lot of like different takes on this set. Uh, but the Sasanian set has a place in reinforcing. Now might be thinking like, wait, that set has no range. Like, are you trolling or like what are you trying to do here? Um, that set can be used to reinforce, but it also depends on the player you're reinforcing. Because like if you're reinforcing a player that has like absolute shit buffs for siege, like you're just gonna like literally just send your march to die. Now this march, because it has lower range, it like fits in between his siege and basically like sure he'll tank the first hit. Like you need to make sure that he is strong enough to take that first hit from that rally, and then the Sasanian set will like do the rest. They have like insane buffs for siege, as you can see on that set, and it also helps with debuffs. Like if you're reinforcing that player, those debuffs will apply if they're higher than the defending keep. So pretty significant if you have that set for reinforcing. And yeah, but like it's very situational because you have to be reinforcing someone that is rather strong. Like I use it to reinforce Hunt. I use it to reinforce Jimsack. Um, and it performs extremely well. Like it's in like we're talking like massive kills, and I could look through it, but like I gotta take
But
some
there's
time.
people that aren't it's not performing well with, and so that's also like another
That's the
thing you have
thing
to,
because
yeah.
mhm, it's a double-edged sword because you can send it to someone that doesn't have elite buffs for siege or like at least not decent enough to like tank that first
Yeah, I
hit.
wouldn't call my buffs elite, but thanks. um yeah, you need to kind of know like who you're sending it to, because I was like so excited about that set, and then I was like, this set sucks.
Yeah.
Until I realized like it's great in certain situations.
There's something I'm gonna try out for troop composition once I unlock T16 Siege. It's totally. I'll let you guys know once I figure it out. I do think there's something there that people haven't seen yet, but we'll see. That extra round from the T16 Siege might come in handy for that
Um
reinforcing march.
yeah, Ice
Um,
King, you said that your team doesn't have enough troops for pre-raining. Yeah, if you miss the beginning, like we rarely pre-rain, so we reactive rain, and that's how you can have the best rains possible in each keep. So we rain when they set. So that's a
and it's
good way to
and it's
to
also very situational, Ice King, because like for example, let's say that your teammate gets chunked for the first hit, and you're like, well, I mean, the siege solo wrecked you. It is what it is. But now, then the archers, scavs, and ground comes in, and that's the beauty of this game. At least reinforcing against those three troop types is so much easier.
Mhm.
Like at least like be real. Like let's say like okay, fuck it. Like my teammate is just gonna lose his siege. Fuck it. Like it is what it is against this. If you have like if you're going against an opponent that's just too strong, you just have to accept it and be like okay, like you'll get wrecked for that first hit. But if he keeps going after you, we will send that counter reinforcing march against archers, cav, or siege, and we're gonna make that guy suffer. Like he's gonna be splatting and he's gonna stop once he sees like oh shit, like I'm not doing anything. And
And
I'm
that's
pretty
what
sure.
happened.
Mhm.
That's what happened 2 weeks ago against that big guy. He was like really chunking one of our smaller players, and then once he got done with the siege, he started in on the arch, and he couldn't get through, and we started making up points. And I don't think he realized that the difference, right? So like how harder it was to get through with Reigns when he's sending Arch or Cav, and so we made up a lot of points that way. So that's a really really smart strategy too.
To answer Sweet Potato real quick, reinforcing with calves against the super buff siege.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
That is a thing. It won't do shit if the guy has siege because like you're basically just sending calves and like his siege is just gonna get obliterated. But then the hits after. So like let's say that the guy now is trying to like since let's say that the guy you're reinforcing has a lot of archers and the guy that's sieging is trying to just kill the archers. Now reinforcing with calves. Now you're onto something because like those calves are getting closer to the like they engage the siege really quickly and they stop them from like actually engaging on the archer. So that's smart to do in order to protect your teammates' archers. Not so smart when you're trying to protect their siege because like siege and siege will engage way before those calves actually do anything. So there's that.
But like the really hard part, the tricky part here is how are you going to communicate with your team that you're ready for those cav reigns? Like so. Mm-hmm. So that takes a lot of communication, especially if it's a fast-paced battlefield.
I am bumping some messages so that we don't forget to answer them, just so we have them. If I miss any, just let us know.
Yeah.
Up next is the most dreaded question I've ever heard.
Wait, the T11 one?
Yep.
Not T4?
Oh, yeah. This one's for you, Hit.
Yeah, so there's a couple answers to this. The first simple answer is get rid of your heavy T4 through T2 siege. With the way that siege works, those are... I've heard recently that there's been a lot of talks about, oh, well, if... And this isn't aiming at one person. I've heard this for years, ever since we started T11ing people on this game. That, oh, well, what if you add... What if you just add, like, all of the T4s? Like, won't they tank?
Yeah.
And I see a lot of, no, don't do that. That's bad. But I don't see a lot of, well, why don't you do it? And I don't think that's really helpful. I mean, it is helpful because, hey, if you trust them blindly, yeah, of course, that works. But the trick to it is those T4s are getting hit before your T11s engage with anything else. So those T11s are essentially getting a free round on those T4s. So they're just being pure cannon fodder for those T11s. So if we see a keep in our... we have somebody who we've played occasionally in the past who has like 200 or 300 million T4 siege. And sure, it looks like their T4s are living, and they are because our T11s are moving on to the higher tiers, those T15s, possibly before it clears the T4s, but we're getting those free points from the T4s that end up just helping us go positive with these rallies. So getting rid of those is the first step. And obviously I can sit here and tell you, like, hey, better buffs, T15 siege help as well. But unfortunately, I think the biggest answer to how to defend against T11s is going to be those reinforcements.
Yeah, even like one reinforcement can totally change the outcome of that hit. Like, well, if we T11 someone, so it was a long time ago. Sir Philip, I don't know if you're familiar. He's a pretty well-known player. He 3-man sieged someone in our server, and we were like, whoa, wait, what? Like, because it like did really well. We're like, wait, you don't do 3-man rallies? It's like a terrible idea. And so then we started like 3-man T11ing the shit out of people, like secretly for a long ass time before people started catching on. But we noticed if they got one siege reign, we got big fucked. So, oh gosh, someone's asking if they should dismiss a bunch of troops.
I think that was a joke.
That's a troll. Yeah, that's a troll.
There's a lot of trolling around T4 Siege. But so I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but that was so fun to exploit. I'll miss it that, everyone knows now, but we fucked up a lot of players for a long time.
Yeah.
At Styles.
Styles, very well-known player in C1, was like, what the what? Like, he was like, oh my god, they're sending a rally at me. It's only 3 people in it. Like, they're so big fucked. And then, yeah.
I'm hoping Big T is.
He's trolling.
No, I think is he trolling?
He's trolling. It's Big T.
No.
Not at all. He says. Now I don't know if he's trolling again.
Assume he's not trolling and answer him then. How about that?
Okay, if he's not trolling, then like what I'm running, which is like whatever, I'm like running like 1 million and 2 million layers for T4s, T3s, T2s, and that's it. Like
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, just a really small amount because you still need them in your rallies.
Yeah, just for that. Like yeah, since they serve as cannon fodder, I just have them for that initial hit. Like whatever, at least like they do consume that round, so might as well just have them there. The point is just not having that many so that you're just not bleeding points. So yeah, just have those layers, and then like what's gonna happen is the T11s are just gonna start moving up. Like Hit said, they're gonna move up to your T12s and T11s, get some hits, and then ultimately they start facing the T15s and T14s, etc. So it's better, like it's better for you for those like if you have good buffs, it's better for you to have that T11 siege rally start hitting your T15s because if you have good buffs, those T15s are just literally gonna eat through them. Like no contest. Like it's just a complete annihilation. And you can see that in a lot of rallies. You would see like, oh, that this T11 was a 60 million T11 rally, 2 bill power loss, whatever, and then like the enemy lost like 2 bill power, and you're like, well, that wasn't power net, net positive, whatever, even. But like the dude lost like fucking 9 to 10 million troops, while you lost 60 million. Well, the ralliers lost 60 million. Like, sure, the power exchange was basically the same, but like that was hella negative. So
yeah, right.
so sometimes those T11s are a necessary evil because like it's better to do that in order to just lose less troops that are more valuable. But yeah, like if the defending keeps is built right and has a lot of T15s and like less of the T4s down, you're just gonna be mad splatting onto him. Like sure he's losing some power, but like the points positive he's getting from it is pretty disgusting.
Knight BK has the same question that Patron and them had yesterday, which is mixed rallies, mixed reigns, mixed troop reign. He was seeing that a lot in All Stars, which makes a lot of sense because, well, you can talk about that 13er hit, but I see why people do it. It's like if you have one march that like if you just I don't like it, but I can see how maybe overall you can get more points in All Stars from it. But I don't recommend it in Battlefield, like a normal Battlefield.
I think for the average case of Battlefield, where you have your enemy who's rallying 1, maybe 2 keeps at a time, you want to be able to get those counter reigns in there. The opposite terrain rather than like a quarter of a siege march, a quarter of an arch march, stuff like that. You're going to end up overall saving your player a lot more troops if they have full reigns in there with your best buffs or the marches that are in there.
But for All Stars, you might be able to get more points from it because you're just sending that to anything and not thinking, and it's all about speed and everything's crazy. So I can see why that method works. Although 13 in the future, there is some signs, like there's a few things we're seeing where like a mixed reign will come into play with the right set, but I don't think we're quite there yet. That's 13 if you want to like talk about that.
Yeah, so there's one in particular that has really like the thing is like it's really impossible sometimes to have like a lot of your players do this, coining wise, clearly. There's this set that like not a lot of people just like well, some people actually know of its power, like the value in it. Not many use it. I've seen some people using it. And it's that Antonine set. So that Antonine set is low key underrated. Um, and it can be used to create that mixed march you're talking about. So a lot of people use a lot of people have a misconception of mixed reinforcements. They think that oh, I'll just send like a bunch of mixed shit and like everything will, take a part of it and like it'll help defend. And like I'm like, sure, you're just creating like an extra rounds of you just dying because like if you're just saying 500k troops and like the buffs aren't really like taking place with 500k instead of like 2-3 million troops, if you're sending that type of mixed march, then that's not gonna work. um
I think just to add to that real quick is also now you're suffering those troop types from their given buffs. If you're separating out their buffs, or you only have your arch buffed general, for example. So all of those other types are going to have much worse buffs than if you send a whole march.
Yeah. So to continue talking, so like in theory, the Antonine set, and I say in theory because like I've tested it a bit, but since it's just me, like I wonder how it would look if it was like 5 or 6 of us, because I think it would look extremely disgusting. But like the Antonine set, like you can pretty much like mix it up with like Cavern Ground, and they give high enough buffs for like Cavern Ground. As you can see when you look at that set, it also gives you a 20% march size capacity. So like, it is intended to be used for be it buildings or reinforcing, since you're sending a massive march. Not so much for rallies, because then you're just sending a massive march that might just, like you're just losing points. Basically made for defense if you really think about it. And the reason behind the Cav and ground march is like if you can send, if let's say you have like this, uh, let's just say like 6 to 7 million march, and because this is where like this set actually like makes sense to use. Do not use this if you have like a 3 mil march. Please do not do that to yourself. If you have something like on the higher end of march sizes, then like doing like a split percentage of like when you'd see, for example, when I'm talking about like, for example, the reinforcing for ground, that 50%, if you do it like a 25 and 25 for the cavern ground, 15 and 15 for the cavern ground of that tier, for example. So basically you're sending that march to reinforce, and yet the march is actually helping you defend against 2 types of rallies. So for example, if it's a cavern ground, you're sending a correct reinforcing march against an arch rally. You're also sending a correct march against a ground rally. And to be honest, you're also sending a correct march against a siege rally if the person that you're reinforcing is out of siege. Why I say, I mean, I can keep talking about this for days. This is bad.
I know you could. It's bad. Toy wants to join the stage for a second. Toy?
Sure.
I don't know how to do it.
I can invite him. Give me a sec. Toy, can you type in chat? It makes it easier.
He's got some questions for 13.
Toy does?
Mixed rally hypothesis.
Is this our Toy?
He wants
Maybe
to talk about mixed rallies.
Toy?
No, I'm just joking.
Oh.
I meant mixed reigns.
Oh, he can't come on.
You trolled us, Toy.
Okay, we'll ignore him.
Kick him out of here. Just kidding. He's in my alliance, so I don't want to do that.
If we want to grab one of the other ones. Oh, okay. So, I saw a couple questions when we were talking, just real quick to end the T4 thing. When we were talking about it, that first round of groups that just get blasted are your tier 2 through tier 4s. Another conversation can be had about T5, 6, 7, 8s, whatever. But for those specifically, it's those 2 through 4 because of their range that they get blasted first. But we can move on from the T4 thing is now.
Yeah, it's beating the horse on that.
Yeah.
If anyone tells you to build a fuck ton, they're trolling you. I.e., respect. Sorry, Nox and Mr. Face like to tell people to do it. It's a troll. They're actually really, really good with other stuff in the game, but they like to troll people about T4 Siege.
So the next question we have is, what is too much upper tier siege layers for a T1 trap?
Ooh.
I hate to say this, but I think it's a player by player basis sort of thing. Because if you have a team who's sending a lot of siege rallies and they need you in those siege rallies, you might want to have a couple siege marches that you're going to ghost so that you can't be siege. I on a general scale, I probably wouldn't say do more than like layering of it. So like maybe 500k 15s, 14s if you're a strict T1 trap. If you're still joining rallies and stuff like that, that's another conversation about, hey, okay, let's get a couple marches so that I can at least join these rallies when I need to join them. But 13 and Hunt, if you have an opinion on that as well.
Sorry, I spaced out.
No, you're good.
No, I'm still like blowing fuses after my latest talk about the.
He's still thinking about the mixed marches.
Can I just tell you? Last year he told me about this theory. He's like super excited about it. He's like, it's not ready yet. Like, I have this theory on mixed reigns. It's a big thing for him, and he's actually okay. You guys can fight me. Anyone that's in C1 or been playing this game for a long time, at least in Continent 2, 13 was the first one that like figured out Cav HP on wall. So his theories are pretty sound, but we'll see what happens.
Most people, you can think of him as sort of like a Jekyll and Hyde scenario, right? One of them's really smart, and then the other one's a little scary.
Yeah.
Okay. What else, guys? We're an hour and 20 minutes in.
There was a question just now about.
Ooh, you know what I want to know from you guys? Like a scenario of your latest Battlefield where like you didn't play it right, and you're like, okay, what should we have done differently? That could be cool if you guys want to talk about that.
Yep. If you guys want to add some of those, hey, 3 LOL. Nope, stop it. That's me, not you.
What?
He can talk to me about those things if he needs to.
Yeah, Hid will get jealous. I'm sorry.
I'm a very jealous Hid. Do not.
Yeah.
I'll throw hands. Sorry, I'll throw siege. I'm sorry, that was really bad. So somebody mentioned something about having some T11 siege for a T1 trap. So you're always going to want at least some layering, because they end up adding rounds to the battle, which then gives your troops, in some cases, more time to get in range or more time to attack the other team, for example. So you're always going to want at least some layering. Now, whether that's 500k, a million, whatever for your T1 trap, play around with it. Maybe you find that the players you're facing, maybe 2 million works better because they can't get through that. Maybe you can add more siege so that you have more for rallies, stuff like that. But in general, you're probably not going to want more than what like I would consider just like layering. You're not going to want to build like 10 million T11 siege for whatever reason, unless you need it for rallies and you can ghost it, stuff like that. Because otherwise it's just going to die, unfortunately. This is a somewhat unrelated question, but a kind of good one. If you guys could change or remove anything from the game, what would it be? Hunt, that.
you know that shit's hard when you're trying to remove like a bunch of family members, and it's just like you gotta scroll through the list. Like, come on, just click on the key, remove them. Come on, who's with me?
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes like I get like a mini headache before that. Like I'm like, am I serious? Like scrolling through that list is fucking horrible.
Yeah, and I can't remember. The time I get to the list, I'm like, who
did I even boot? Right? Like, where am I? Hell yeah, that's the best.
I mean, the eviction, word, holler, I mean, preach, everything.
Yeah,
No, but for
I think
I don't.
for me at least, I mean, change. I guess like I would so much more enjoy this game if like every time we play a battlefield, every time we play an SVS, it's an actual even playing field for me at least. I guess that is just too much to ask for. I've just accepted it, and like we just play with what we have. We play against whatever opponent we get thrown at. It is what it is.
Agree with the eviction here. We want skill. Hell yeah, like that's the
Yeah.
fun part when you're really engaging your mind.
Mhm. And not gonna lie, like that's how it's felt lately. Like at least for
Yes.
us, like playing Frank, like dude is a massive monster, really like elite. Like scary even against like our bigs, and it does feel like an even playing field because like we can touch him, but he can't touch us as well. So like that's how it feels. Against WDF the other day, it also felt that way. Both teams just respecting that both teams have the ability to outplay the other, and
Mm-hmm.
like it was really even to the last minute until like one of the others just caves. Like it's like it was really really close until one team just gave up. Um, and like that's at least that's the most fun I've had lately. Like it's really, you know, like sometimes we go in against like let's say a stronger team, right? And like we just go in, we try our hardest, but then we're just seeing that not it doesn't matter what we're doing, even though we're reinforcing appropriately, we're doing what it like how the game is supposed to be played, and we're just still getting like destroyed. Well, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like I've just come to accept it, and but yeah, like that would be my thing. Like if it's something to
Yeah.
change in the game, is like always have an even playing field. Like always get matched up against an opponent that is literally in the same caliber, in the same bracket as you.
Yeah. I mean,
Matchmaking, basically.
we have opponents that are like, if only you guys had better buffs, it would be a lot more fun. Like they admit it too. And it's just I think the gap is probably bigger than ever, but everyone always says that it's bigger than ever. But it feels like this K45 gap was harder. It's been harder for NEF than the K35 to 40, sure. As far as like kind of catching up, because we drop off and then we catch up eventually. So yeah, that matchmaking piece would be huge in the gap. But I don't know. We're really hopeful about like opening T16s as a team and seeing how that helps us compete with like those mega buffs. And I'm just reading.
Yeah, I'm reading through the comment section. Like at this point, it's like.
So I got a question about
You got a question, or you're reading a question?
Nope, I got a question.
Oh no,
About
for who?
specifically for probably a lower coining player. In terms of what civ gear you're going to want to use for your defense gen. Ideally, you're going to want all choreo for your wall gen, but
true. Yeah.
if you can get the 3 cheaper pieces of choreo, obviously do that. So the boots, helmet, and ring, which are going to be pretty important. And then for a T1 trap, you're going to want to try to find, if you're not doing the full choreo set, you're going to want to try to find as many, if you're doing full siege, you want to go for siege buffs. If you're going, full cav for a T1 trap, you're going to want to find cav buffs. If you're doing cav and archers for your attack, you're probably going to want to try to find, you might want to use the bow from the like Ake bow that you can upgrade. Stuff like that. And then
Yeah. You guys can ask us about like we have a lot of free to play players in NEF that don't have that full set and probably never will, and they're still hanging with us playing. But if you can, like, there's some players that can, they just have really like spread it out over, how long has that set been out? 2 years? I mean, we have players that have been like saving and budgeting for it for the course of 2 years and are finally like completing it. So if there's any budget at all, just be like budget that way, and work towards those pieces because those are really helpful for your wall.
Yeah. We have one person who I think wanted to come on and ask a question. I think I'm assuming that's what that means. I sent him an invite.
Hey everyone,
Hopefully.
Andy.
Hey, what's up, Mindy?
Hey, it's from server 1015. Hello.
I my word, but this is mainly for C5. I'm trying to limit my players to having very low numbers for siege, at least in the low tier siege.
Mm-hmm.
For T8, I'm keeping them at most 1 mil just for layers. Big going up T9 to T9 T10s is about 10 mil. T11 12 I start pushing up the numbers. But then what would be the expected buff at which point I would have my team really start working on siege and increasing the top tier siege numbers?
Yeah, so I would say, if taking a look at it from this, I want to make this as generic for everybody as possible. Taking a look at where you all are at. For example, like, we might tell our players, like, hey, if you have less than 1,500 siege HP and defense on wall and less than 2,000 attack, like, you're probably going to end up the siege is going to get blasted. But I think that's not. I don't think that's fair for, a C5 alliance or C6 alliance, for example, to say that to their own players, because they probably don't need those buffs right now, at least right off the start. As important as it is to keep pushing, I would say, rather than like cutting it off at a buff number, I would say when you see them be able to start taking these solos better than they typically have, so when they're either going positive or you can see it getting close to positive, I think that's probably the time to start pumping up those numbers to sort of get it to the point where a siege solo march is going to go super negative against them, and then they pump the numbers up even more, and then you can see it do like the screenshots you see of siege marches doing 4 million damage to people, like power wise.
I mean, from my point of view in C5 right now, I'm coming across players who are attacking with 3,000 easy, 2,900, 2,800 siege,
Yeah.
and going all the way to, literally, I've faced Fahad, K45. I've faced, we are facing 44s with 3,800, 3,900 siege attack and 3,300 siege HP. So,
okay, so you are facing some of those bigger keeps that have those buffs.
oh yeah, I mean, my alliance LOC right now we are ranked 388 for SVF, and
Nice.
Okay, wow, nice, yeah.
so we are facing server 10 this SVS against Optimizer K42. So it's for me, for my alliance especially, I have to hold them back from building siege, just because even if they build siege for Battlefield, it starts lacking on SVS. If they build for SVS, we are lacking on Battlefield. So that's why I generally hold my players to at least 1,800% buff before I have them start building out siege, because
attack, or are you talking defense and HP?
Defense and HP. Attack, I want at least 22 to 2,400 before I would look at them trying to build out siege.
Okay.
Because without 1,800, they're just getting wiped. I mean, single solos are wiping out 4 million, 5 million T14s, T13s, T12s, get all the way to T12s, maybe even T11s at times.
Okay. You might not like this answer, But it sounds to me like the issue right there is T15s. So the T15 Siege, you probably know this, but they, just for context, probably almost a year ago at this point, they updated T15 Siege so that they have one speed over T13s and T14s.
Yep.
So those are an enormous help against those siege rallies. So I think that probably if you get those T15s and you're at like the buffs that you said, or probably even a little bit lower, and you get those T15 layers, you're going to be able to. Those players are going to be able to tank those very well. I think those buffs are plenty to be able to take those if they have T15s, but without T15s, it will not go well.
All right, so basically push for T15 siege rather than hold the
that's what I would
siege
say. Yep.
Okay. All
and
right.
I think that'll make a world of a difference. We have.
Oh yeah, and then like show us your. I'd love to see like an update on that too. I like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think I've spoken to Huntress and I shared.
Have we?
Yeah, I think about a year ago.
Oh.
You laid out a plan for how I should work with my team to get them so that the whole team scores points, lateral power.
Oh yes.
We landed up from 5,000 points laterally to 18,000, 11, between 15 and 20.
Oh shit! Nice.
So that's
awesome.
6 players getting 15 to 18,000 with 1 or 2 players landing up in the 25, 30,000.
I like that. I really like if anyone wants me to analyze your alliance, not your keep. 13 hit could do keeps. I could do alliance. I can tell you what you need to work on as an alliance if you want to be like a super PvP team. I just need to look at a few things and ask a few questions, and I can tell you like what a good strategy is to move forward. And no, it's not like replacing everyone with coiners, but
hey, I don't even force my alliance to coin. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm doing enough coining that I don't want you guys to screw around and mess up. So yeah, if they want to coin, they're free to it. If they don't want to coin, I don't push them for it.
Yeah, we don't push either. Like sometimes we have to sell a keep, and it's like, hey, can you maintain what this player's been doing? But we push bulk packs, which are the $20 packs that come up when the event starts twice a week. We love those
Shopping
packs.
spree.
There's a lot of gems in those.
Yep.
So we really love those for free to play. Well, almost free to play, but I mean, some people can spend $20 here and there. I think that's the one pack, like the one coining we really push, and we just like get kind of excited about it. But
I agree. I mean, this is some of the things which I've done. I mean, laterally I have now but 6 or 8 K40s pushing through the alliance.
hell yeah,
that's
awesome.
That's awesome.
So,
and then are you pushing 15s?
I already have my T15 siege. I'm waiting on opening my T15.
That's the best one. I feel like as a team, open the siege, because I've seen a lot of teams like all open ground, and I'm like, what? Like what? Why open ground? I don't understand that. If you're gonna solo, like have a few guys that have T15 ground, but as a team, I think Cav and Siege is like the best thing to open.
And I agree. I mean, right now, since I'm the rally setter, it was easy for me to open T15 siege. That's why I opened T15 siege first. For the alliance as a whole, I push always get your siege research done in MA before you touch anything else, because your siege is where you're lacking at any given point of time.
Yep, I like that idea. That's great.
And overall, people just to open T15 siege, everyone has to get their war hall, which needs the embassy, which needs the market, and everyone just cries about it. I'm like, I don't want you growing. I don't want you to going up a keep level if you can't get these things done.
Yeah.
Those are my those are some of the hard and fast limits I've put on all my players. By the time you get to K40, I want you at K39 for all the troop buildings, so that you don't face issues when you get into battlefield or in SVS. And once you open K40, you're looked at differently than a K39. You're not gonna get attacked. As a K39, people are not gonna get attacked when they see a T1 wall. So you might as well
That's true.
start preparing for what's going to happen when you get to K40 and you have to go on the offense all the time, rather than try and take a defense win, because people are just going to avoid hitting a K40 just by looking at it.
Yeah.
So that's
Um,
why that's one of the reasons why I'm like asking this question as to when do I start pushing most of my players for siege? Because yeah, I've held up for the buff and not for the T15 siege. So
yeah.
I guess I'll modify the alliance a little bit.
Yep. I think once you see those T15s and realistically how big of a change they make, even compared to what buffs will make, I think you'll understand and it'll make complete sense. But
I mean, you were one that saw it live hit when you were like, you saw the difference before you opened T15 Siege yourself.
yeah.
So yeah, like it's there. Like the difference those T15 Sieges do in the battle mechanic is just insane. So
Yep. We had a question. Small free to play. I'll bump it again so you two can read it as well, but I'll read it out loud just in case anybody doesn't see it. Small free to play. 420 mil keep K35. He has one good ranged attack march, both siege and ground generals. Should he be trying to build out siege before going for ground for reinforcing others who are bigger than him?
well, it totally depends on how big we're talking the others are, because like if they're not that big, then I guess, like reinforcing with siege is basically someone that like is pretty big enough to tank a siege rally per se. So I guess we would need to see like how big his alliance is and like who he's reinforcing.
So what we can do is let's give two scenarios just in case we don't get that. We can give one where the other players are of that smaller variety, and then another one. Oh, he said most of the players he reinforces in Battlefield are between 1 and 10 bill.
That's a big gap. I mean, if you're reinforcing the 10 bills, I'm assuming siege. I mean, I'm assuming this is C6, right?
He said 1 and 5 bill more likely.
Oh.
So we can just go off the smaller numbers then. C6, his biggest player is 10 bill, but 1 to 5 for the most part.
I guess I would have to see, but I guess like if it's gone to the smaller variety, right? I would think the ground is gonna do a little bit more. Just like we were saying before, like just accept the fact that like siege is just gonna disappear from your members, like they're just gonna get chunked. But then you can at least help, like when they're getting arch rallied, like you can send that ground march and keep them alive. The siege, like I mean, it does some work, but like it usually does more work when you're reinforcing the bigger guys. So if like we're talking like the 5 bill range and that, like I think the ground reinforcing will do a little bit more.
Yep.
In
At
terms
that
for
point, trying to keep them alive.
you're gonna keep him alive. You're not thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna keep his siege alive. Think more of I'm gonna keep him alive. So yeah. So there's another question here from Jake, where he says, like, is there any update on conquering throne at high levels? As it stands, if the defenders are competent, they can set 3 rallies and clear you out of throne. Has anything changed strategy-wise? Example, some people don't send right away and would only send to throne when the first rally marches or right before the first rally marches. I don't know who of you wants to answer this, because like
we should have STG do a whole event on this because they're so good at this. But
yeah, they're the like since how their alliance works, right? Like they are literally built to defend throne. Like they can't attack, conquer an enemy throne. Like how they're built, they can't do that.
I
But
mean,
they for sure can defend one. That's for sure.
I liked the strategies. The strategies we're using against catapults and then applying that to throne.
Yeah.
Which is reactive reigning. Well, we should just rename our alliance that. our
yeah.
No, that doesn't work.
I guess
That one's
Jake.
already taken.
I guess I mean it hasn't changed that much. Like you're right. Like if the defender is competent, like they're just gonna wipe out the throne. And since you can just send them back to back, like you're just not giving them any chance to like refill it. But it was pretty interesting against STG last SVS because like they, instead of just setting that triple or that double or quad, whatever it is on the throne, they were really focused on like trying to like literally mess with us and camp those catapults in order to like deter what's inside throne. So it literally ended up being us like literally fighting over the catapults.
Yeah.
So it was pretty entertaining because like it was totally different from just like camping throne gets rallied, we moved on. Like it was actually like really battle intense, like battle packed, because like we were just reactive reinforcing catapults. They were rallying. We rallied them back on the catapults since they were trying to like camp them. Like it was like really fun. Like props to them because like STG is always really fun to play against in SVS for sure. Like those guys are relentless for sure. But yeah, so I guess like for the top tier teams, yeah, like if you're just bored, just set the 3 rallies and like that conquering throne at higher levels has not changed at all. Like the defenders have the upper hand if they know what to send. And
Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
think
that's basically the summary. I guess STG was just like an outlier how we played them. Like I'm sure it's not going to be that way against like another team. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think the biggest issue with that is if it's a lot of intimidation, pretty much. Of are you going to loot? Like, is one of your players going to get rallied while you rally them off of throne? Where
That's
if
also.
people aren't able to join the rally because they're going to get zeroed in, one hit if they join the throne rally. I think that's still a somewhat common issue at the higher levels that you have to watch out for. That because there are always going to be smaller players, even on the big teams, that aren't going to be able to join those rallies because they could get soloed, they could get rallied, and it would just go really horrible. So I think that's one thing that sort of deters that. But
Yeah, I was like interested in this when NFG knocked Respect out. I was wondering more about that. I don't know if Knox, if you can share that report, would be willing to, but that was pretty shocking. Was that real? Like, were you guys like anyone pull out? Like, I don't know.
I'll be completely honest. Like it is exactly what Knox said right there. The T16s did work. Like
Oh, the two. Duh! Holy shit!
yeah,
I can't wait for
yeah,
T16s.
yeah.
Luan
So,
and BK. That was it.
if you have 2 sets of T16s with the buffs those two have, they have that upper hand in terms of that extra round. So like that is like pretty much the first reason why they like completely obliterated RSB and that throne. It's just that set of T16s is just a massive advantage.
Well, that's exciting.
It is always exciting, yeah.
And that
That
means like I don't want to see NFG in Battlefield for a while.
yeah.
Or I do, and then look at the reports and cry, and then
That is
towards
also true.
T16s.
it's
That's
fine
the right way.
because 13's unlocking T16s after this call, so it's okay.
That's true. We're gonna have 3. We should have 3 K45s. I think in 2 weeks we'll have 3. But
Just wait for
I don't
Hid.
know. I don't know. I don't know about T16s yet. Hid will come along too.
Don't giggle at that. Yep, X-Wing made a good point.
What's he say?
When you're defending your own throne, it costs you whether you knock them out positive or negative, and most of the time at that point, that determines who wins the SVS.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How to increase siege buffs for free-to-play players?
Like completely free to play? And this is hard because, like, I'll be completely honest. I
think the one and only answer is Ymir and Pans. Get all of the tactics roles that you can every week.
Yeah,
and go for Military Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a whole nother event topic is how to prioritize boss rallying, because that's definitely something I think NEF did early on, and we were forced to because we were at a war, so we like ended up prioritizing bosses like to the extreme, and that helped us unlock like massive T15s. But we could, maybe Anya would be open to having like a whole event on that, but it does involve alts and botting. So if you're against that, you know, you can come throw tomatoes at us, but it's kind of like if you can't beat them, join them. So unfortunately, yeah.
Nox did make a very good point. The Alliance boss, I believe it's choreo and freedom set that you can slowly get over time. You can get
it is
30.
Completely random, but
Yep.
yeah.
It is random, but it is still a possible thing. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to focus on as a free-to-play player, because the choreo set gives a lot of siege buffs.
And it's all about like having patience as well. Like you just have to accept the fact that you're just gonna have to grind it out, and it's gonna take a long time.
Yep.
It is what it is for a free-to-play player.
I mean, that's the fun. Delayed gratification is what makes this game so fun. I mean, if you look at like who quits, a lot of people that quit are the ones that like race ahead and it's instant gratification, and then they're like, I'm bored. They're like working towards something. Like working towards K45 has been, it's just like so exciting when it actually happens. Like I'm really close. And I don't know, I'm pumped about 216s. I can't help it.
Sweet. So somebody asks,
That's exactly right, Luna.
specifically to us, who are the most advantageous players in NEF? Is it the setter, the small building takers, or the people who join the rallies? Hunt, this sounds like a great question for you.
Like advantageous in like what context?
That's for you to decide.
Well, okay, so you want to know like what exactly? Like I don't get the question. I'm sorry. There's no star in NEF. I always say NEF's the queen. We have 4 setters. Oh, we find out like who's good at what role, and we like let them run with it. You know, I don't want to like moan about this, but you know, we don't have a WoW. I mean, Respect doesn't have a VIP 25 player that I know of. Like, so we have to kind of like make up for that. Okay, well, Fox.
What?
We only have one. There's only one VIP 23.
I know he's talking about Respect.
Oh.
Okay, I don't want to get into that.
Oh
There's
my
like
god! It's getting heated.
Moving on. Quick.
Where we are, there's like all this like constant like top 5 alliance like shit happening all the time. So let's move away because that doesn't like impact anyone. So I don't know what you wanted to ask about NEF and players. We have, I think, a really cool setup with 4 setters. I'm really into sniping. I love sniping. So like instead of setting 3 rallies, I set 1 and just laser eye them, make sure they have a march out, and just like send it real quick in like 8 seconds. That's like my favorite thing to do. Anya thinks any more questions? Maybe she wants to wrap up. She's like, I have to go get some Easter eggs.
Yeah, I guess.
Why do I miss my rallies on
we don't set rallies on BK.
We don't rally BK. What the hell?
You mean okay? If Sing is on your account, yeah, I miss your Fox Socks or Splat on a solo on it.
Oh wait, this is an important one.
Ooh, Tibbs.
Tibbs wants to know if he can get revenge. And my
Hell
answer is
yeah!
No. Oh.
Tibbs is WDF. Hell yeah, that was fun. Okay, I'll be honest. I didn't play that day.
I was gonna say I was on your account. You were there.
I watched it and I was like, ooh. Okay, well, Tibbs, next time I'll be there, so careful.
Fox thinks it was horrendous because we just didn't splat onto everyone.
Somebody said, is the 12th sub worth it? If you have 300 million gems laying around, probably. I will let you know, nobody in NEF has it, nor will we probably ever. But if you have 300 million gems, go for it. It's a good, I wouldn't say a lot. It's a good amount of buffs and there's a good amount of debuffs that you're getting.
I mean,
So,
like, look at your keep and prioritize. Like, you don't want to like put all your eggs in that basket and then have no gems, and like all of a sudden, like you used all your tax return money and you have no money left to coin. You don't want to do that. So like think it through. But if your budget is big, sure. I don't see a lot of big budgets that last long. So know that too. Like, how long is your big budget going to last? Because the depreciation on keeps is crazy. That's why we're really slow when there's a keep thing. When there's a keep update, we're like, we're not going to blow our load. Sorry, that's a really bad term.
Oh.
We're not going to blow. I don't know. Is there something we're...
Nope, too late.
Yeah. I just wanted to answer Jake really quickly because he was talking about like swapping subgens. I'll be honest, like with the role I have in NEF, I don't have time for that. But to answer more about it, I guess like we, at least like I can talk for myself, but like basically all of NEF is just building that way. Like we're just focusing siege HP debuff, siege defense debuff if it can be, and range attack debuff. So we're just basically just defending against the true primary rallies that we get slinged at. Like those are the two that are like most of the times being set on us because like of our size, and like those are the ones that will obviously do better on us. And then like once it comes down to like the cav and ground, this is where like our, again, like I'm gonna just say the word again, reinforcing, nobody panic. We just go back to the reinforcing, and like if you can reinforce fast enough, it does make up for like those cav rallies and ground rallies. You can make those splat pretty easily. So like at least for us at this time, we're just focusing the debuffs that debuff the troops that are really hard to reinforce against, if that makes sense to you. I'm sure some of my players might be able to do that where they swap subs. I'm pretty sure Hit could be fast enough to do it. I'll be honest,
Some call me the greatest, but
okay. And I'll be just because of what I'm doing during the battlefield, I'm just not gonna have time to do that, or else like the whole tempo just like goes off. So
is he the greatest? Okay, that we can put a poll up.
oh,
make a poll to see if Hit is the greatest.
Anya, do you know how to make a poll? Anya,
yeah, make a poll. Yeah. Mahor versus Hit.
Okay,
it's not even close though.
Do not put Mahor anywhere near my level.
Yeah. Don't disrespect Hit. Come
on. So.
And yes, Nox, it is extremely. Because like you would need those subgens to be like relevant now in order to do that swap. So like, it's not like you're exactly. So
it's much more than 300 million.
Yeah. I mean, if you have like one or two that you want to like get that extra 100% debuff or 150, depending on how much like spec'd and ascended it is, then maybe it's a little bit worth it. But like,
I mean, let's be honest. I'm gonna say it's like 0.5% of the game that can get that sub. And I don't think it's worth it. I'd rather fucking coin.
We're talking more about like the swapping subgens like during the battlefield in order to debuff against the like once you know that you're not going to get siege rallied, swap those subgens in order to debuff another troop type.
Oh, sorry, I was tuning out.
Yeah, that's why I said like Hit is probably able to do it because he's the greatest ever.
That's true. Like swapping your march on throne when there's 3 rallies up. Like, show me footage of that. I want to see that.
So, somebody asked if my opinions on beta earlier, a few minutes ago. I think I don't see any reason to do that over the regular game at this point. They haven't really been using it for actual beta reasons. Like I'm pretty sure K45 came out like either after it did on the main servers or like a couple days before. But I will say, it was really good for back when K40 came out for me to test like a 2 billion arch trap keep. When like you had like the regular 300 mil T1 traps, but it was good testing for that just because I had unlimited resources and unlimited speeds. But other than that, there's really no benefit.
Knox, sorry, it was a funny one. All right, anything else on team defense?
It's getting to the point where I'm like literally just invested in reading everyone here. And yes, true, I agree. Fuck yeah. He is the only alpha.
We lost our NEF YouTuber, but we just made a new YouTube. If you guys want to check it out, that would be cool. I'm gonna make like really fun YouTubes with like writing and music. It's gonna be cool. Oh.